live में डाल रहा हूँ. Then we maybe in 1 minute we can start.
Yo.
Okay, you can.
It has come. Oh, it has come.
We should start.
Just a second. Let me broadcast. Just a second. Yeah, let the attendees come in maybe for 1 minute and then we can start.
Yes.
Yeah, you will have to give them some time.
Yeah, sir. Maybe like a minute or so.
Yeah. Not an issue.
Anand, after the introduction, I request you to allow me to share my screen.
Yeah, sure. You can in fact now. You're allowed in fact. Prashant, in fact, it's like 117 participants now.
Yeah, I think we should start then.
Yeah, you can start. Yeah, you can start.
Nora, we can start.
Okay. Namaste and a very good evening, good afternoon, as well as good morning to all the participants who are joining us from across the globe. It is indeed a pleasure for us to, on behalf of the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, Faculty of Pharmacy, to host this virtual session, one of its kind international webinar wherein we all from across the globe are together attending to this session today. Before I start, I extend a very heartfelt welcome to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Parimal Vyas, our Dean of Faculty, Professor Krutika Samant ma'am, and as well as all the faculty members of Pharmacy Department, Faculty of Pharmacy. Moving ahead, as economies around the world are suffering from the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, businesses are experiencing losses, workers are experiencing the loss of job, and many face the challenge of complete upheaval or change in their lifestyles. So as there are pandemic change, there are transition in the lifestyle as well as the job scenarios, economy, and as far as our pharma world is concerned, everything is seeing an unprecedented change. So through this webinar today, which is impact of COVID-19 on pharma market and economy, we all will get an insight into what will this post-COVID era will bring about in pharma world as well as a general scenario in the world. To begin officially with today's session, I invite our Dean Ma'am, Professor Krutika Samant, to deliver her welcome address. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Dara. So I warmly welcome everybody, all the participants, a special welcome and heartful gratitude to our Vice Chancellor, Honorable Professor Parimal Vyas, who has kindly graced the occasion and has agreed to give the welcome note and address for all the participants. I especially welcome and thank our speaker for today, Dr. Devendra Pultambekar, who is the head product portfolio, Oman Pharmaceuticals, Oman, who has kindly consented to be the speaker for today's very important and appropriate webinar on impact of COVID on pharma market and economy. We are overwhelmed by the participation from not only India, Gujarat, outside Gujarat, but also from various countries like UK, US, Canada, and UAE. I welcome all the participants. I also welcome the audience who is watching this webinar on Facebook. As we all are aware, we are facing an unprecedented pandemic which has affected millions of people in more than 215 countries. Scientists, researchers, and medical practitioners are racing against time to find a treatment and cure for this pandemic. Unfortunately, very few molecules have been found to show some results as a treatment for this COVID-19. And the development of vaccine also is in the development stage, but it may take minimum 4 to 6 months or some years also before we can have some vaccine which can give us protection. So that leaves us to the only thing. We all are aware about the idiom, prevention is better than cure. But for COVID-19, I would like to rephrase this idiom that prevention is the only cure. So if we want to safeguard ourselves from COVID, we have to give us protection. I will say two-phase, physical as well as physiological. The physical protection is in form of wearing or using masks, hand sanitizers, hand wash, personal protection equipments, use of disinfectants and all, so that we can physically prevent the COVID from exposing ourselves to it. The physiological approach is that we have to boost our immunity so that we can fight when the COVID attacks. So this can be done by use of immunoboosters, immunomodulators, nutraceuticals, herbal supplements, and other alternative approaches. For all this, for each and every of these approaches, the pharmacy and the pharma industry is the backbone. So the pharma industry, of course, wants to help, but is facing with the challenges of the supply chain disruption, the disruption of the raw materials, of the APIs, manpower, transportation, and all. In spite of all this, pharma industry is coming up with its best and trying to deliver and meet the market demands. In other words, this is the only silver lining which is helping the economy globally to be boosted or to be sustained. I would not say boosted, but it is sustenance of the economy. And this whole thing is going to be talked upon, touched upon, and discussed in detail by our speaker, Dr. Devendra Puntambekar. So I once again invite and welcome Dr. Devendra Puntambekar, who will be discussing in depth about the impact of COVID-19 on pharma market and economy. I am sure that all the participants will have a very fruitful and interactive session. I once again welcome and thank all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful welcoming start of today's session. As ma'am very well said, that prevention is the only cure for this pandemic that we all are going through. So keeping that in mind, let us all move ahead and moving ahead with the session. We all are very privileged today to have amongst us the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Maharaja Sayaji Rao University of Baroda, Professor Parimal Vyas, sir. And today he will deliver the keynote address to us about this international webinar. Few words about sir. Professor Parimal Vyas, sir, is serving the Maharaja Sayaji Rao University of Baroda for the second term as a Vice Chancellor of the university. He has the distinction of being the very first dual joint professor of Faculty of Management Studies, and as a distinguished academician and able academic administrator, he has been nominated several times as chairman of NAC peer team, chairman in several committees constituted by University Grant Commission, New Delhi, as well as National Board of Accreditation. Apart from that, he is also the member of Empowered National Committee of UGC CARE Journal, and under his leadership, the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, accredited with A grade by NAC, and also it appeared in the world ranking list in the World Times Higher Education Ranking, THE, and also the QS ranking. Under his leadership, emphasis on e-governance, implementation of innovation of e-governance initiative via MSU examination portal and annual report management system, and also execution of digital university was all achieved under our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. We heartily welcome you, sir, for today's international webinar and look forward to you for today's opening remarks for today's session. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. Very, pleasant moment. Faculty of Pharmacy is one of the very important faculty. And before I share some of my thoughts, I believe I've been given 10 minutes. And I'll try to put some efforts to set the tone for the today's webinar. But let me publicly say, because we have research scholars, faculty members, professionals from the entire world, they are participating in this very important webinar, which is organized by the Faculty of Pharmacy. And I think the theme is impact of COVID-19 on pharma market and economy. Both are, I'll tell you, very difficult. I think the speaker will try to do justice because both are interlinked. But this A grade, which we always talk about, the Faculty of Pharmacy has made a very significant contribution in, helping out the university to achieve whatever milestones that we have achieved in the rankings. It's very interesting, COVID-19 pandemic. It's a moment of great opportunity and a great challenge, and this becomes very important for all of us to realize that when you look at the pharma industry, I'm not an expert, but I've received some statistics, on my industry. Maybe if you look at globally, the whole world is looking at the pharma industry of the world. And I hope I need not, explain to all of you the strength of our industry. But then when you talk about medical innovations, you talk about developing medicines and vaccines to improve quality of life, undertaking, technological advancements. The global market for this industry, is about 1.3 trillion. That is the expectation. It's growing at 4.9%. And yes, India, it is $37 billion in 1920, and it contributes around 1.5% in GDP. That is the role that the pharma industry plays when we go by the figures. And in last couple of decades, I believe the situation is entirely different, because now our share is around 85%, as I understand, and global share is around 15%. And we contribute about 20% of the global generic market. Now, when we come to, these problems that the whole world is facing, and it is unforeseen, and we never thought that the world will have to face a kind of a pandemic that we are all facing, right from the month of January. So now what is the solution of this? I'm not a pharmacist or I'm not a scientist, but then in that case, every day when we open television sets, we read newspapers, and then people, they say there are no vaccines. I think the challenge is before all those who are attending this webinar, that there is no vaccine. And then people, they debate on what we call how long it will take, to develop vaccines. Somebody say, so I look at it, in two ways. Number one is that we'll have to have a short-term challenges, and then we'll have to long-term challenges. I am really not interested in going into a debate that the pricing and certain other practices of the pharma industry. But one thing which I understand, and I would say that while reading some of the articles which some of the experts have written, they're available in the body of knowledge. But even for pharma industry, the world would be very, very different, post-COVID. And I'll tell you, it's a big challenge. I'm not sure, but this webinar should also provide us an opportunity to how we should revamp our entire academic curriculum, research, and then the practice part of it. I think that's a challenge which I would request all the educationists, because that is our role. I personally believe that we will have to, introspect, and we all have to realize one thing, is that it is the value of innovation, and that too, it has to be in a tangible terms, not for getting projects or not for developing just medicines and all that. It's very interesting, when you read and then you're told that India is exporting medicines, some of the medicines for, taking care of this COVID into 123 countries. And probably the world will have to realize. In the morning today, I was addressing another audience group of attendees. We were talking about the role of herbs. I think we'll have to look about the herbs. We'll have to look about Ayurveda. We'll have to look at the Ayurvedic and other disciplines also. I think that also we really need to take into consideration. If I just read the quote, which has come from none other than Scott, who is a former commissioner of the US Food and Drug Administration. The quote reads like this, because I think this is the right time to, revisit his quote. Drugs and treatments remain increasingly the only way to get our economics back on track. Given the adverse welfare consequences of physical distancing around the world, I'm very happy, unquote. I'm very happy that somebody is talking about physical distancing rather than, social distancing. The man who has changed the lives of each and everybody is Bill Gates, as you all know. His quote is also very interesting for pharma industry. And he has announced that to be manufacturing ready despite uncertainty about new vaccines will be approved. I think how are we going to take care of those processes? Because when I look at the pharma industry, I believe there are three approaches that some experts have suggested, which I for the benefit of the participants, I would like to take it up. And I think then the expert speaker would certainly try to deal with his, because he's a professional, he would speak based on his own experience. But I think it's very interesting that it involves three steps. Now, I think pharma industry companies, those who are accustomed to work largely on their own, they will have to learn to pool resources with competitors and work more closely with state organizations, bodies. So I'll tell you, all stakeholders, it's a challenge not only pharma industry is facing. All stakeholders, particularly, you look at government and all stakeholders, they will have to come together. And what do we expect industry? The first thing which I would like to share with you is that we'll have to share research to develop treatments for the virus. No single company, I believe, so industry, all those companies, who can really make a difference to the lives of all of us by developing vaccines, I think it is expected that they will have to share their researches. and then they'll be able to team up to manufacture new drugs. So this is the another very important expectation, that now this could be a challenge also for the entire pharma industry, because I'll tell you, I really don't want to raise this issue, but then how do we decide the price? Should we produce medicines by looking at the demand? Because when I teach a subject of management, price is a numerical value. That's what I teach to my students. Now today we want to say it is always we say that we Indians, we have decided to choose between life and the livelihood. We are passing through this lockdown. Life is more important than livelihood. Livelihood, I think, naturally there will be economic impact, and then everybody is questioning the government stand on extending the lockdown. But then life is, I always believe, initially life is more important. And then, so we are in the second phase. Yesterday also I said survival. Now I think it is the revival. We have entered into a second stage, revival. And probably in near future, we'll go for acceleration and growth. And I expect, because all pharmacy professionals who are attending webinar, I expect you that I'm not expecting only acceleration and growth. I'm expecting excellence. I'm expecting that we will provide the world a kind of a leadership with the strength that the Indian pharma industry has. And that is the collective responsibility, not only of pharma industry. I believe those who are in academics, those who are researchers, they also need to provide, so that support, that making up of a team is very, very important. And I'll tell you, if I just share another, expert, he is Innovation Vice President, Andres Koster. He has also written a wonderful article. I'm sure all of you must have, it really appealed to me when I was trying to understand about the webinar, that despite our efforts, our clinical development process is still so far behind what we could be able to do in the 21st century. I think COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to think through. We really need to very critically evaluate anything and everything that we do, either in academic institutions, in the research institutions, or maybe in the industry, when we talk about the practice part of it. And that is the purpose of this webinar, yes, we have an expert with us. I welcome the honorable expert who has agreed to spend time and expertise, and to lead this webinar. So on my personal behalf, I welcome you, and we expect, a team of experts, professionals like you, who can really guide us, so that, because the professionals that will come out of the Faculty of Pharmacy from various universities across the country and the world, they all will need your guidance. We really need to integrate, and I'm very happy that the Faculty of Pharmacy has organized a webinar on a very, very relevant theme. Due to paucity of time, I'm not going into the economic aspect, because that is also, you have kept the pharma market in the economy. I believe the entire pharma industry will have to learn the new rules of the game to build and sustain competitiveness, and that competitiveness can come with the research. But we should not just fall in love with the outcome of the research. We have to see to it that how can we do that by improving the affordability, equity, and access of those drugs, not to just our country, but to the entire world. And I think that is what is being expected from our country and the people who are from the pharma industry. So I wish there'll be a lot of question answers that would happen at the end of the webinar. And this is very important. This is just a beginning. In just 1 hour, you would not be able to get answer of all questions. But it's a wonderful beginning, and I congratulate Prashant for leading the seminar. I was so keen, and I congratulate Dhara and Professor Krutika Sawant and the entire team of pharmacy. where you have thought of, and we have a lot of expectations from you, in terms of research, in terms of academic contribution, and I wish that you will keep on organizing such events, which is of an international nature. Thanks to COVID, I believe COVID has done a great job. He has done a great favor to all of us. Otherwise, I think when I talk about online education, let us accept criticism that it is only using multimedia projector in a classroom. That is what the definition was of online education. But I think COVID has provided us an opportunity. And I believe, like other sectors where this country has, dominated the whole world, I'm quite optimistic, I'm quite positive, and pharma industry of our own would show the path, and we will be able to develop a vaccine, not just of COVID, but even in future of all such challenges which we can foresee. I think we'll have answer of all those questions. And I think that would be the spirit of the world's biggest democracy. My heartiest congratulations to all of you. All the very best. Thank you, one and all, for a very patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful words of wisdom and especially encouragement to the entire fraternity of pharma world, and also not only the as far as academics or research is concerned, but also the industrial scenario which concerns the economy. And as the Indian market holds a very major share in ruling or in developing the pharma world across. So this words of encouragement and certain things about his words of insight regarding how our short-term challenges and our long-term challenges will lead to unprecedented change from our survival mode to revival mode, which will bring about growth, and not only growth, but excellence in academics, research, and industrial aspect of pharma. Sir, we are sure that this webinar will do the justice to your expectations, that we hope that this COVID-19 pandemic will bring about the change in the world. To introduce today's speaker, Dr. Devendra Puttambekar, sir, I request our faculty member, Dr. Prashant Gurumkar, Assistant Professor at the Faculty of Pharmacy, the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, to formally introduce our speaker today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dhara. Thank you very much. Now, before going for the introduction of today's speaker, I must thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor Parimal Vyas, for giving this opportunity. I think he is the right person to start this webinar, because we need to bridge the gap between research as well as economy. He is a person from management. He is a professor from management as well as from commerce. And I think he has given the right platform to us, and he was the right person to guide us. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I take this opportunity to welcome all the attendees who are participating in this international webinar. I'm also welcoming all the people who are watching this live webinar on the Facebook. Now, before again going ahead with the official introduction, let me tell you that Dr. Puttambekar, he is an alumna of MS University of Baroda. He has done his PhD from Faculty of Pharmacy. That time, actually, it was a Department of Pharmacy under the guidance of Professor M.R. Yadav. In fact, Professor Yadav is my guide also. Now, again, going into a detailed discussion from where he did his education, further education, but I need to tell one important aspect here. We need to go back to 20 years. Almost in the year 2000, there were few people or few groups were working in the drug discovery where in silico approach was used. I believe only 2 or 3 groups were there all over India. That time, Professor Yadav, he decided that, yes, at Faculty of Pharmacy, we should have a SGI workstation, which was the prime requirement that time to do in silico studies. And he wrote a project to the government of India. And I think I'm not wrong that SGI workstation, he could bring here in Faculty of Pharmacy in the year 2003. And I'm proudly saying this, that Dr. Devendra Kuntambekar was the first student who was working on this SGI workstation. Now, I must again tell you that this SGI workstation in academia, it was a first in Gujarat. There must be in industry, few industries must be having, I'm not having exact figure right now, but it was the first in academia where SGI workstation was there. And actually in the year 2004, we started working, 2003-4, we started working on in silico designing, as well as using some this QSR, as well as all these structure-based drug design activities. And because of that activities only, we could get certain important publications, as well as we could give some certain insights as far as drug designing considered. So Dr. Devendra, he was the first student of Professor M.R. Yadav. He did his PhD and he worked on a farnesyl transferase enzyme, which is involved in the cancer. He designed certain farnesyl transferase inhibitors, and that drug development process was continued. As soon as he completed his PhD, he moved to industry in Ahmedabad. Now this the name of that industry is Parimal, Piramal Industries. This Piramal Pharmacy, that time it was Oxygen Healthcare. He worked there for 2 years as a project leader. Then he jumped to Oakard Limited as a senior research scientist, where he worked in strategic planning as well as global IP in the year 2010 to 12. Again, he thought that he should shift from research to some managerial skill. That's why he joined MBA in Leadership Institute, Delhi, and he did his MBA in 2013. After completion of his MBA, he joined Oakard as a business manager, where he worked for almost 2 years. And again, he thought that he should go for the postdoctoral research. That's why in between he was there in Italy as a postdoctoral research, where he worked for an Indo-Italian project. This project was basically a synthesis of cyclodextrin derivatives, which were used for various biological interests. He worked in University of Torino, Italy, as a postdoctoral research. And I think he's the right person where research as well as this business, which can be which the gap can be bridged, and he's the right person for that. Again, he joined this Oman Pharma as a head product portfolio, who is looking after this US market. And since 2015, he has been working there as a head product portfolio. With this brief introduction, I now request Dr. Devendra, please start his webinar. Thank you very much.
This is for the kind attention of all the participants that there's a Q&A box which is there beneath your screen. So all the participants who have questions regarding today's topic may type their questions there, and our speaker today will address them. Over to you, sir.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Parimal Vyas, Professor Kritika Sawant, Dean Faculty of Pharmacy. As a proud alumni of MSU, it gives me a great pleasure and honor to have an interaction with you all and share my experiences on coronavirus, its impact on the pharmaceutical market and global economy. The views I express here are personally of me in person and in relation to any particular industry or a particular company. So to begin with, you see, if you look, there is a big question mark across everybody here. The airports are empty. People are losing jobs. Hospitals are full. People need work. Can you imagine? The Mumbai locals are empty. I mean, the businesses are down. All the businesses are reporting losses. So there is a big question mark. So, and the devil or the enemy of all this is nothing but COVID-19. So if you see, look at it, the initial normal was C for cat, but now the new normal has become, it's C for corona. This is what my younger and elder daughter, they were discussing, because in school now it's taught that it's not only cat, but it's also C for corona. It's very surprising to see how this word was discovered. WHO has a norm. If you have to rename any virus or name any virus, it should not belong to any geographical location or any name. There are only 4 words in the Oxford Dictionary which start with CORON, coron. The 4 words are coronation, coroner, coronary, and corona. Fortunately or unfortunately, if you look at it, all have some or the other relation with this COVID. Now the coronation crown is just like the spike proteins of the coronavirus. If you look at coroner word, coroner is nothing but who inquests in finding suspect deaths. Now in this case, you are having it because of the COVID. Coronary arteries, they supply medicines to the heart, supply blood to the heart, and they are also impacted because of this COVID-19. And last but not the least, the gases surrounding the sun are defined as corona. So I think it's very important for all of us to see how it has been named, and it's really important to see. Look at this dreadful picture now. The entire world has been captured, or maybe with this invisible enemy called COVID-19. Look at the African continent. Look at the North American continent. Look at European continent. The Africa is less impacted, but more or less everywhere across the globe there is a pandemic which WHO announced on 11th March. On the other side, as Professor Parimal Vyas sir was telling of optimism, look at this. Look at the picture. If you see the first picture on the top left, the air pollution levels have drastically changed. This is a picture of Wuhan. In the top yellow is of the air pollution in Jan 19. Look at Jan 2020. There is a huge difference in how the earth is behaving now. Look at the second down picture. It is of the Venice canals. I personally, when I visited Venice, it was impossible to see the ground level of the water in it. Now you can see the marine life. Look at the right down picture of the river Ganges. Top right, look at the picture of New Delhi. So there are 2 sides. Every coin has 2 sides. One, we are facing with the pandemic. The second one, the earth is recovering on its own. So now it's very important for us to understand or to maintain a balance in between both of these. It has been said and proven for a long time, we consume more than we need. So hence, this is a time to look back, think, and decide that you need to consume only limited resources of planet Earth, or to put it in a way, Mother Earth, and then strike a balance. Now, what I have done is to study the impact straight away. Let us look at what were the previous pandemics which we faced, tolerated, and worked upon it. 1918, the Spanish flu, the dreadful amongst all as of now, 50 million deaths. 57 came the Asian flu with 4 million. 68 was the Hong Kong flu, 1 million. 2001 SARS, it did not impact much as far as the mortality rates were concerned. 2005 was the bird flu. Bird flu also had less impact on the humans. Then came the Middle East respiratory syndrome. And now, last but the most supposed to be dreadful now is the COVID-19. As of now, this is yesterday's figures. The mortality numbers are 0.27 million, so 274K as of now, and the number is increasing. If you see the global coronavirus cases that took off like a flight from the runway, it took off from March 10. From March 10, there was a steep spike in the number of cases which happened per day. And today, there are close to 3.9 million cases. There was a time in January, February, wherein there were certain indicators which our Prime Minister Modi also recognized and took corrective actions at certain time. Otherwise, it would have been a great great disaster. Amongst 3.9 million, if you see the breakup, US is the most impacted one. US took off late, but the number of cases are, increasing tremendously with a very high mortality rates. Followed by Spain, the top 5 EU countries, Iran, China, Canada, and India has also crossed now 56,000 cases. Now, these are only the number of cases. Now, how does all this impact the entire economy? If you look at the gross domestic product, we were supposed to grow 2.9%. Now, the Indian economy, if you look at the economies, the top one is the US with $22 trillion, followed by Japan, Germany, and India. We were aiming to have $5 trillion economy in the coming 4 to 5 years. This COVID has impacted that a lot. Supposedly, now the forecasts are 2.5%, 2.4% we will be growing. That means the growth rate has reduced by 0.5. Look at the numbers. What's the global economy? Because the main reason to show this is we need to look or have a perspective apart from social distancing, apart from wearing mask, apart from sanitization. So we need to have a holistic view wherein we need to see how the world is impacted, and we all are sailing in the same boat, plus or minus here and there. So $86 trillion was the global economy, which was forecasted to grow to 90. But I am doubtful that these numbers will drastically come down because of the COVID, which we will discuss. And pharmaceutical industry has a big role to play in this. So their contribution is immense. Now, there are 3 scenarios which have been reported by OECD and IMF. The best scenario is how much will we lose? Whatever you do, whatever may come, the globe is going to lose $76 billion. In moderate case, $155 billion. This is a scale we are talking. This is nothing but a combination of certain economies of certain countries. So you can just imagine what loss this coronavirus is going to make to this Mother Earth. And in worst case, it's $346 billion. It's huge, huge impact. Now, if you see the loss, as I mentioned earlier, I will quickly run to it. It's hardly 0.4%, minus 0.4%. But if you look at the absolute numbers, it's a huge loss to the economy. Now, to sustain or to maintain this economy, we need to see what governments have done in different countries and look at the stimulus packages which each and every government across different continents have provided. Japan has provided 21% of the GDP as a stimulus package. United States recently allowed $2 trillion, which is 11% of their GDP, and so on and so forth. Surprisingly, India's stimulus package is 1% of the GDP. There are a lot of critics, but I personally feel whatever the amount the government has released, they are using it very wisely. We cannot afford to give or spend or give aids worth of billions of dollars that will have very bad repercussions in the coming decade and in the coming years. So it's good. We are spending money, we are giving it to the needy, and also taking care of the healthcare system. What is the impact? So we saw coronavirus impact on the global economy, stimulus packages. Now, what are the industries which are affected? The biggest of all is the tourism and travel industry. Look at the losses which these industries making. Lufthansa is bearing a loss of $4 million per hour. British Airways has asked for a bailout package of $40 billion. So, I don't see any aviation industry starting very soon. In parallel, we should be proud of our government who is giving or sending 64 flights across the globe to get back the Indians, because the oil prices have also been impacted. So kudos to the Indian government. The second one, you see the travel spend. the forecasted business travel spend, conferences are closed. There are no business travels. There is no global interactions happening in person. So if you look at China, $404 billion is the travel expenditure loss. Look at Latin America, minus 17, Asia Pac, minus $120 billion. I'm just trying to make you realize or make you explain these the impact of this coronavirus. Look at the oil prices. They went down to $20 a barrel. Now the prices in Middle East are slightly improving, but because of the change in the oil prices, the economies have been impacted a lot. IT spending and the growth forecast, if you look at it, I mean, the pessimistic scenario, which was released in 2020 March, you see it's only year-on-year spending will increase 1.3%, but it goes to negative in more of the worst case scenarios. And in fact, IT is now one industry which is able to connect us on live platforms and also keep the industry and the economy moving. Now look at the number of facilities as far as industries are concerned across the globe. The companies worldwide, as far as the areas of different industries is concerned. 13% of the facilities, if you see in high tech and semiconductors, they have been closed. But now, if you see, the mark has increased from 2,500 plus. Automotive, it has increased to 2,730. Life science, healthcare, pharmaceutical, 1,562. Consumer goods, 1,139, and rest all others follow. So the number of facilities of 1,000 largest companies in the worldwide, they have made a quarantine. They have a lot of restriction on the manpower, and it also impacts the overall revenues which the pharma industry is generating. Auto industry go down by minus 10.6%. I will quickly skip through these slides. Now, this is more relevant to the pharmaceutical industry, wherein the chemical production has been impacted. Now, there is a forecast also that in coming 2021, there will be slight boom in the chemical production. But as of now, if you see across the globe, all the statistics are in the negative part, except for the Mexico. What's the impact on Asia? So the biggest industry affected is the recreation. But I second my thought with Professor Parimal Vyas sir, who said that life is more important than livelihood. So I guess recreation comes in the category of livelihood. So that's not the key as of now. So if you look at the industries which are impacted, recreation minus 5.8, transportation, equipments, transport equipments, agriculture, all these numbers in the coming slides, if you see how they impact the pharma industry. Business operations in Japan, if you see, there is a huge drop in the operations, business operations, because of factories being closed, raw materials coming from China has been stopped. So, I mean, from February, March, and April, there is a drop close to 36.07%. India, as of now, if you see quarter on quarter, the GDP, it's minus 9%. So I think this is because of the lockdown. The numbers will improve in the coming quarters. Europe is not spared at all. You saw the impact on the Italy, Spain, UK. So they also follow the same trends. US has been at the top as of now. You look at the industries, leisure hospitality impacted a lot. And if you look at the other, every unemployment rate has gone up like anything. And thus they are thinking of blocking the H-1B visas and other. Now, with this basis of the economy, the impact it has on the entire globe, let us move on to what the coronavirus has done to the pharmaceutical industry. There are good points. Also, there are pros and there are cons to it. The pros, first, let us look at the positive aspects. The social awareness of disease control, prevention, and healthcare has been enhanced. People are aware of virus, healthcare, and they think twice and try to maintain the hygiene. This is what our Prime Minister was talking about Swachhata Abhiyan. Second, it is really a time to reflect for the government to think if the necessary expenditure on healthcare has been allocated in the budget, number one. Number two, do we have the perfect number or the sufficient number of doctors if you consider the population per se? So the ratio has to be maintained. As of now, we have it's 0.7%, and hence, if this disease takes a very wrong turn, India will suffer a lot. Third, healthcare budget I talked about. There will be value now, as we were discussing earlier, and also in the introductory address. There should be value in development and commercialization of not only vaccines but different medicines, and this will be driven by the capital markets. Digitalization, there has to be a new normal now. As I said before, digitalization has to be key, because if you look at the statistics, people prefer now to have more of telemedicine because you need to maintain the social distancing. So across US, Europe, the impact of telemedicine or the usage of telemedicine has increased a lot. So the same has to come down to the Asian continent also, which will come. And now the demand for private health insurance will definitely increase. So putting a perspective, for medium to long term, quarter-wise, it's okay now, but I think we see a good positive outcome as far as the Q3 and Q4 is concerned. If you look at the pharma companies, medical institutions, distribution, retail, and the insurance sector, what are the positives and negatives? PwC came up with a very good report. They say that the growth of demand for the drugs of corona prevention will increase, but as Honorable VC said, price is just a numerical value. So what we need to see is that as long as we increase the revenues, but the health and the well-being of our fellow citizens should also be taken care of. There is a lot of attention to the vaccine development. The reason is India supplies more than 60 to 70% of the vaccines to the entire globe. So at this point of time, if I am correct, there are 6 companies who are working on the vaccines. Just to put up an example, which is in public domain, Serum Institute of India has tied up with Oxford University, and they are contract manufacturing those vaccines, certain million doses, well in advance. So, and the Indian companies, there are 5 Indian companies, did not to name, but there are 5 companies who are having 30 vaccines ready on the table of their research. These 30 vaccines are at the very different stages of the development. So, and the government are ready to fast track this. So with a good hope, we are confident that by another 5 to 6 months, we will have a phase 3 outcome of certain vaccines. If you see the negative impacts on the pharma companies, these are very much temporary. So number one, which is mentioned in the report, is the sales decrease for chronic diseases. Now, chronic diseases, especially, there are a lot of reports in the public domain which talks about the oncology, the impact of oncology patients, because a lot of COVID patients are rushing to the hospital, and these cancer patients are not having any time, or the doctors are not having any time to treat them. You need ventilators, they need some radiation therapy, and because of which the sales have gone down. They are not able to buy medicines, and also in parallel there is a lot of death rate which is increasing drastically as far as the cancer patients is concerned. There are limitations on the academic promotions. There are different angles to this, why there are limitations, and we will talk this in the coming slide. The key part in this negative aspect of coronavirus is now you don't get patients to be recruited for clinical studies. The number of patients have come down. People are hesitating to participate or to volunteer in certain clinical trials. So there are a couple of things which impact the clinical studies, and because of this, there is delay in the development of the vaccine development. Even for the generic companies, you don't get the volunteers who can be taken for the bioequivalence studies. So I think there will be a slight delay, but there is a ray of hope, and we will move on to certain molecules in the coming slides, which give us a ray of hope as far as the drug pipeline is concerned. Moving on to medical institutions, as I mentioned, there is a very much fast development of digitalization. The third party diagnostics, which Kritika Sawant madam was mentioning about the diagnostics, it has to be improved a lot. This boost has been given to our young entrepreneurs, and they have delivered, as you know, in the public domain. A woman who was pregnant was able to come up with a diagnostic test which can give the COVID results in a couple of hours of time. So kudos to those entrepreneurs. The medical institutions are having a very bad time as far as categorizing them into emergency or not emergency. So here is where the infrastructure comes into play. So all our healthcare workers, whom we appreciated in due course of time also, hospitals are having a very difficult time, and that's how you see in certain hospitals you have the dead bodies also with the patients. So we need to cope up with this, and the government is definitely working on it. As far as the distribution supply chain disruption is concerned, this is a sector which is impacting the pharmaceutical industry a lot, and because of this it is impacting the overall top line revenues, which is also contributing to the healthcare economy and also to the entire GDP. Now, the good thing is people have gone for online pharmacies. That's okay. But even if you order, you need someone to carry the medicines to your house. Okay. So there are convenient apps. There are a lot of price erosions also happening. But because of certain restrictions like Section 144, or a lot of medicines are imported. For example, hydroxychloroquine went into Schedule H. You need prescriptions. You cannot do it online. So there are a lot of problems as far as the supply chain disruption is concerned at distribution level. At the manufacturing setup, we will come to the next slide. So with this, we can conclude that there are a lot of positives as far as the industry is concerned, but there are a lot of cons also, wherein there's an opportunity for us wherein we can improve on certain sectors or sections. Now, as manufacturing setup is concerned, we need to assess the different dimensions of manufacturing setup. Now here, I have not considered R&D because I have taken R&D as a separate slide, so wherein we will see how R&D is impacted. But before that, just because I was talking about supply chain, I thought the production slide will maintain the flow. So if you see the production process, you need to optimize the production process as far as the number of hours are concerned. You need to improve the quality and efficiency with the existing manpower. Now, if you see, all the industries are working with 30 to 35% of manpower. It's very difficult to maintain all the processes, all the protocols, and all the GMPs, and also deliver. So one thing is that we need to optimize the production line structure. We need to rethink how we can maintain that sanity in the entire production flow. Second one, if you see, the key part is the production personnel. Now, we need to have a training, and my personal feeling, the training should not be limited only to the industry level. So personally, myself, I am very much willing to share the protocols and the training plans which we implement in the industry. We can have a couple of them shared with all the MSU research units so that they can follow the protocols. And that's how I think the academic industry can work together by taking this as an opportunity. We need to lay down the roles and responsibilities of, for example, a research head, for example, a senior member in the research team, that may be a professor, or that may be a head of the department. So we need to assign the roles, because coming or in due course of time, Corona is not going to go away so easily. There will be a new normal, and we need to align ourselves to this new normal. So we will, this is very important. We need to strengthen and also optimize our inventories, imports as far as the materials is concerned, and also evaluate and assess the production cost. So there are a lot of matrices now which have been implemented in the industries, wherein we need to optimize the cost. I'll come to cost in the coming slide. So overall, you need to redevise, rethink on the new normals and act accordingly. Now, digitalization, I will not move more or stress more on digitalization, because we are aware what is the importance of digitalization now. This perspective which PwC gave was more of the industry perspective. So we need to develop unique and differentiating methodologies to do innovation, to have conferences. In fact, I was a panel of the CPHI coming year, which was planned in Milan, and they were thinking of having virtual meetings. So you need not travel to Italy and have a conference or have a meeting one-on-one, but you can arrange the same meeting by using Zoom or Microsoft Teams or have a special software. So that's a possibility. So I think a lot of research collaborations, a lot of research industry interactions has to happen on these platforms. And I'm happy also to assist and also to help my department to move in that way. Now, you look at these numbers. I mean, how this, as rightly mentioned by our honorable Vice Chancellor. So we are a $40 billion approximately industry. Out of $40 billion, we import 4.5 billion from China. Now, 4.5 billion is a very huge amount or huge value. We import the API and the raw materials. Now, if you look at the data, and also the coincidence is that China New Year concluded in the month of February. Normally, the industries have 3 to 4 months inventory considering the new year. So we were well equipped and we managed it well from March, April, May. So there was not much shortage of, or the impact was not visible. But the fear now in the coming quarter is, if you have exhausted with that inventory and China, if it cannot supply, then it really leads to what we coin it as supply chain disruption, which impacts the production and the availability of medicines to the patients. So I guess one good thing is China has set the production. So we are very much sure that we will get those raw materials. But in parallel, I am sure, and we are in touch with certain industries, that we want to be self-reliant in the coming years, especially for the steroidal APIs, the minerals, the antibiotics. Apart from vitamin D, India imports or is dependent on China for a lot of other vitamin B6, vitamin B, vitamin B12, as far as the raw materials are concerned. So now we are moving towards self-reliance, and I'm sure we'll come over it. 2/3 of the intermediates come from China. As I said, inventories can be exhausted very soon. This impacts the production, which impacts your exports. Supply chain disruption is a natural outcome, which we are working very closely. And I'm sure in the coming quarter, it will not be on the negative side. Now, having said this, there is also a pricing cap, but at this point of time, pricing should not be a much matter because we need to save life. I think our renowned industrialist Ratan Tata also recently quoted that year 2020, you need not worry about profits, you need not worry about losses. You need to worry and think how you can save your life. So pricing will not impact much, government will take care, but it's very important for all of us to see how we can save our life. Coming to the more important aspect, which is also very close to my heart, so research. So if you look at the impact, it cannot be put up in numbers, but you see these are the bottlenecks now. Certain federal institutions, certain university research labs, and certain college labs who have been working on post-doctoral research or doctoral research or master's research, the laboratories are closed. The laboratories are closed. There is a cost to open the laboratories. You may not feel the cost as a numbers per se, but you lost that time, you lost the communication, and you lost the tempo. So closing labs and opening labs is a big cost. Second, there is a lot of hesitation now. I have been receiving a lot of emails from the students fraternity, from the doctoral researchers. What will happen to us after I complete my MPharm? What will happen after I complete my PhD? And also there is a worry among early career faculty members who have joined the any university. So my take on it is, this is a temporary phase. This should be utilized by most of the people to gain or to inculcate a lot of skills which are relevant to your domain. There are a lot of free courses available, and I'm sure year 2021 everything will be on the positive side of it, and we will have jobs and the economies and everything moving by Q1 2021. Cancellation of conferences, there is a huge economy behind it. The moment you cancel any conference, the biggest industry affected is the airline industry, the hotels, the hotel bookings, and everything impacted. So, and most important of it, the research collaborations which were planned, or the agreements which were planned to be executed by various research departments with their foreign counterparts, that's impacted. I touched upon the availability of volunteers in my previous slides. It's very difficult nowadays. Effects on R&D. If you see, industry is going through a very bad phase. Most of the industries have prioritized their research. All funding has been diverted only to work on the antiviral products which can help the COVID. And there is slight shift in the R&D focus. Having said that, the existing all R&D projects are on. There will be a slight delay, but I'm expecting everything to resume in the next quarter. So as I mentioned, the other financial cost, which not only the university departments or colleges, everyone faces, is shutdown and restart cost. We don't want to deep dive into that. The availability of equipments, chemicals, the huge delay, and the freight costs have increased. So I still remember, if you buy one equipment for academic, for example, at 90% discount, now you will not be able to avail that discount. The discount percentages have gone down. So that's how there is also increase in the cost. Availability of funding now is a big issue. All the major economies are diverting all the funds to COVID. The Oxford University, if you go through, they have diverted most of their funds to the COVID vaccine. If you also look at the other major federal grants, NIH grants, everybody is diverting their NIH grants to the clinical trials of remdesivir or maybe hydroxychloroquine. We will come to that. So the most important part, there is a ray of hope. So definitely, what gives the ray of hope? The vaccines. 30 vaccines in preclinical stages. India is developing on phase 3 clinical trials by different companies. Did not name those, but are going on. If you look at the clinicaltrials.gov site, you have 1 to 4 clinical trials ongoing for hydroxychloroquine and other antiviral drugs like remdesivir. So also we are working on the entire industry and the academia together are working on the plasma therapy, so of the recovered patients. So I hope something will come over this. Recently, a word of caution, US FDA has given approval for emergency use of hydroxychloroquine and also remdesivir. Hydroxychloroquine is a Schedule H drug. Please do not medicate yourself with hydroxychloroquine unless and until you are prescribed. There are a lot of side effects. So, word of caution. Now coming to the research, I quickly want to show you what is the ray of hope. If you look at the SARS coronavirus, this is the coronavirus protein. The coronavirus protein here, I have a molecular video, but just to avoid interruption, I would prefer to go straight away with this slide. The virus binds to the ACE receptor. This is the cell membrane. The yellow line is the cell membrane. Okay, so this is a dangerous enemy, COVID-19. It binds to the ACE2 receptor on the cell surface. Now, this ACE2 receptor naturally has a tendency to engulf the COVID-19 virus. The moment this virus is engulfed, it enters inside, which we have renamed it as inside the cell as SARS-CoV-2 entry. Now, the moment it is entered inside the cell, there is a RNA release by the enemy. So the RNA is released here. There are two ways now. The RNA released, it undergoes translation. Then there is a release of viral DNA or viral RNA, it replicates, and that's how it's dangerous, or it multiplies into more. Now, where does hydroxychloroquine act? Hydroxychloroquine acts at this phase. If you look at the ACE2 receptor, hydroxychloroquine attaches itself to ACE2 receptor. Now, the beauty of hydroxychloroquine is it has 3 to 4 important functions. One, it is a zinc ionophore. It has been published in 2010 itself that hydroxychloroquine is a zinc ionophore. That means it binds to the zinc and enters the cell. And this zinc doesn't allow the replication of RNA here below. The zinc as such cannot enter the cell membrane. So how does zinc enter? Chloroquine, which is bind, for example, to ACE2, forms complex with the zinc, and then chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine takes zinc inside the cell. The moment it takes within here cell, the hydroxychloroquine has some beautiful mechanisms. Now these are proved in vitro and they are in clinical trials. Now, how does it work? One, it blocks this replication. Second, the key important part is hydroxychloroquine increases the pH of endosome and lyosome, both. Now, the moment you increase the pH, that means it is called as this alkalinizer. The moment it increases the pH, the multiplication of viral RNA stops. The moment this is stopped, you cannot have all these happenings at the right side of the slide. This will stop automatically. So the left part, hydroxychloroquine acts, and I will explain to you the right part of it, remdesivir acts on it. Now, I will just see if I can run a video of remdesivir. Please bear with me for a second. Okay, I think it's blocked on it. Okay, so moving further, the remdesivir is nothing but adenosine analog. Okay, so what it does is that our nucleotide sequence contains adenosine. The moment remdesivir enters the cell, the viral DNA doesn't recognize this is an adenosine or is a prodrug of adenosine, which is remdesivir. So it forms a binding to the viral DNA, and then this process here of the M protein, endoplasmic reticulum, the RNA packing doesn't happen. So it is a dummy drug. It is very interesting that because it contains adenosine, the viral nucleotide sequence of the virus doesn't recognize whether it is a remdesivir or adenosine analog. It immediately attaches to it. The moment it attaches to it, the prodrug is released, the active drug on the viral DNA sticks to it, and then the replication stops. So there is a ray of hope, which I thought that I would just explain to you before I conclude on it, because as far as the global impact is concerned, to summarize it, the economy is impacted, the pharmaceutical market is impacted because of the reasons what we saw. Research fundings will come up, will boost in the coming last quarter of it, or maybe in the Q1 of the next year. And I think there is a lot of good thing which has happened. The earth has improved a lot, and it is a time for us not to look outside, but to look within ourselves, what we need to do, and then the nature will definitely take course in due course of time. So for me, it was an opportunity to combine economy, science, research together, and try to see how analyze what it impacts on the pharmaceutical industry. There are a lot of things, but I think I made justice of touching to most of the things which impact directly the economy and the pharmaceutical industry. So by with this, I would like to thank the MS University. I would like to thank Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Parimal Vyas, Professor Sawan ma'am, for giving me an opportunity, and for giving me as an alumni a chance to share my experiences. So stay home, stay safe, and enjoy. So this is my family. So we try to do multiple things and try to see how we can enjoy and also take care of ourselves. Thank you so much. If anyone has any query, as far as my knowledge and experience goes, I will make attempt to answer those. Over to you, Dara.
Thank you, sir. You very well said about that. This is in this time of crisis, it's time for us to look within. And you have covered very well covered all the topic related to pharma industry, economy, as well as physical and mental well-being, and looking also at the brighter side of today's scenario. We have few questions from our attendees today. So first question is from Krupa Shah. She says she has a query that due to COVID-19, less manpower are working at present. How can we manage the outside calibration of instruments? Should I repeat the question?
Yeah, please. So she's from the academic background.
Most preferably, she is from, I think, industrial background, because she's asking about calibration of instruments from outside in this this crisis where the manpower working today is less in the industry. So how do we address this issue?
Okay. So here I would just like to tell you the experience what we went through now of calibrating certain instruments in our quality control department. You need to prioritize the equipments you need to calibrate now. For example, you have a lot of analysis to be done on a certain equipment, for example, HPLC, which you have recently purchased. Then there are certain provisions made by the governments and all, which allows these people who can travel and come down to your industry or academia, who can help you to physically calibrate it. Because we got an engineer from Singapore in this COVID situation who flew down to our factory. Obviously, he was based in Dubai, but he came down to our factory and this calibration was done. If at all it's not possible nowadays, there is no option than to hold on for a certain period of time if you can, and try to manage the things.
Thank you, sir. There's one more question from Mr. Dinesh. He is asking, is it possible for private pharma sector to collaborate with the government research organization to boost up research for the future?
Absolutely. I mean, it's going on. I mean, at this point of time and before also, all the drugs, all the new chemical entities always has the origin from academia. In one way or the other, academia has a very, very big role to play. And yes, definitely, academia and industry has to work together. In fact, if you see CSIR, ICMR, they have a lot of big projects coming in as far as the coronavirus is concerned. For diagnostic also, they have very big projects coming for industry academia collaboration as far as the curcumin, turmeric is concerned. So yes, I agree. And this is how we have to work together and find a solution to this global pandemic.
Yes. Ms. Dhara? May
Yes,
I
sir.
interrupt you? Okay.
Yes, sir.
There are a lot of questions. Actually, we can take some specific questions only,
Yes.
which will help you. One question is there from Dr. Prafulla Sable, who is a examination controller from Nagpur University, and he's a pharmacist also. He's asking that what is the impact of large-scale pharmaceutical production in India for global market, and he's specifically asking over China market. So, what is the impact?
Okay. So as far as the global market exports is concerned, you see, as I mentioned, the Chinese New Year plus 3 months inventory always the industry keeps. So till May, June, most of the industries have their inventories stocked up, and we need not worry about that. As far as the exports from India are concerned, you are right, Professor Sable, our import of API and raw material will govern our exports. So we have, for example, hydroxychloroquine. Multiple companies in India have started manufacturing the raw material. So right from scratch, we did not dependent on China now. So the same thing is happening for vitamins, minerals, and everything. So I think by this quarter we'll be self-reliant, and we should be able to maintain the same percentage of exports in the coming quarter. I hope I have done justice to it.
Yes. Now I think this question answer session would be continued. There is no limit, but there is a time limit also for us. So I request now Dhara madam, please kindly conclude the session so that we can go ahead for the vote of thanks.
So
Sure,
before
sir.
you, Prashant, sorry Dhara, I would like to thank all the attendees also who are on Facebook Live, who have registered for the session, for the patient listening. And I have also written my email ID. So I will share the presentation with Prashant and the MSU team. Entire team, thank you so much. It was pleasure always talking to MSU. I really felt as if I am in the research lab now, talking to Prashant. We spent a lot of good time fighting for research, fighting for the SGI station, and was wonderful, Dhara, for coordinating. Thank you, Professor Krutika Sawant, and also Dr. Anand for the support. Over to you, Dhara. Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. Before Dhara concludes, I would like to congratulate Devendra on behalf of all of us, organizers as well as the attendees, because it has been a wonderful session and he has covered almost all the aspects of the impact of COVID on the global scenario and as well as economy. He has done 100% justice to the topic which has been allotted to him. So thank you, Devendra.
My pleasure,
Over
ma'am.
to you, Dhara.
We all agree with our Dean ma'am that our today's speaker, Dr. Devendra, has duly done the justice to the topic, the theme for today. And to end the session, to sum up what all we have had all throughout the session, there is only one statement that we can say, that as in today's crisis, we cannot go outside. So it is time for us to go inside, within. May it be, we be from the field of academics, research, or industry. This is a time we can excel in our skills, develop our skill inside out, so that we are prepared for the post-COVID era, which is to come soon. And now I hand over the mic to Dr. Prashant sir to deliver the vote of thanks, and looking forward to many more of such webinars with much more interesting themes and speakers to help us develop our knowledge and our exposure to the pharma world and elsewhere. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, madam. On the behalf of Faculty of Pharmacy, the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, I would like to thank my dear friend, Dr. Devendra, for accepting this invitation and giving justice to this topic. In fact, as our Vice Chancellor sir has rightly pointed out, that it is really a very difficult job to balance this economy and research as far as pharma industry is considered. And I believe that all these participants are agree with me that he has given the justice to the topic. I take this opportunity to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Parimal Vyas. I'm thanking our Registrar Sir, Dr. K.M. Chudasma, all the syndicate members for their wholehearted support for all the activities for carrying out this webinar. I'm thankful to our Dean Madam, Professor Krutika Sawant, and all my entire faculty members of Faculty of Pharmacy, because without their support, it would have not been possible. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Anand, who is handling all these activities behind the screen. I'm thankful to Dr. Prakash also, because he's also supporting. I'm thankful to Dr. Chirayu, who is helpful, who is always continuously supporting us to carry out all these activities as far as digital era is considered, and particularly keeping all this webinar on Facebook. Thank you. I'm thanking all the participants, and also I take this opportunity to thank all the viewers on Facebook who are watching this throughout the world. Thank you once again. I look forward that there will be many more seminars with different topics which would be interesting to all pharma faculty members. Thank you one and all. Thank you very much. And again, last but not least, but I must thank Ms. Dhara also.
I